Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Enoch Throckmorton Jr., and my channel is Enoch in Charge. Today I want to talk about a little bit about my own personal health history, and then I want to talk about we as men in terms of our health. Back in the day when I used to go to the doctor used to say stuff like, "You're pre-diabetic." And I'm thinking at the time, okay, not really knowing what pre-diabetic mean, not really knowing what kind of questions to ask, not being a person who researched to find out, what that meant. But he would say from time to time, or he or she, depending on the various doctors that I would go to, they would say that you're pre-diabetic. Well, I really didn't know what that mean. And by me being young, you have a tendency to have the attitude as, hey, I'm young, I'm going to be around for a while. I don't have no real health issues, so I don't have to worry about anything happening to me anytime soon. So you kind of live life without really keeping up with in terms of your health, because that's the last thing you think about when you're young. So, when I go to the doctors, particularly when you go the first time, you have to fill out a questionnaire. And of course, one of the questions on the questionnaire is, do you have any diabetes in your family? Well, not that I knew of. So my answer was always no. And so, and my family was pretty conservative back in the day growing up, and they were quiet. And my family had secrets, and they never talked very much about, especially not to us kids, about what's going on. So when doctors ask me, do you have any diabetics in your family, or does it run in your family? My answer was always no. So leading up to about 2009, I'm on my job, and all of a sudden I'm starting to not feel very well. Now, I hadn't felt well in about a day or so, but some of the symptoms that I had was I was fatigued, weak. When I walked, my legs felt like they were 200 pounds each. I was starting to get I couldn't see distances. I was starting to get a little blind. I could see up close, but I couldn't see across the street. Not really knowing what's going on. I was peeing. I seemed like I was peeing every 30 minutes. Then it seemed like I started peeing every 15 minutes. I hadn't made a bowel movement in a long time, and I thought that was a bit unusual. And so I was having all of these symptoms. My mouth was real dry. I later learned that I was dehydrated. My mouth was dry. And the things that I ate, they taste different. I found out when your mouth is dry, your food doesn't taste the same, because it's not mixed with the saliva that you're accustomed to tasting your food. And so all of these symptoms was going on with me, and I didn't know exactly what was wrong. So one day I'm on the job, and all of a sudden, and I was working, I had a 6 to 2:30 shift, and I started at 6 o'clock, but by 10 o'clock, I was like, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it. And so I had to call my boss. Now, that day happened to be my boss's day off, but it was fortunately that she lived a couple blocks down the street from my job. So I called my boss at home and just told her, look, I'm not feeling good. I said, I'm not able to get, I'm sitting down. I'm not able to get up and do my job. I said, I think I'm gonna have to leave early. So she came on in to work to check on me. And the first thing she said was, oh my God, look at your eyes. You look sick. So she made arrangements for me to take off and leave. So I had a friend. I couldn't even drive. I drove in to work, but I was feeling so bad I couldn't drive. So I had a friend to come pick me up. Friend took me to the hospital, and come to find out that it was diabetic. The diabetic symptoms had taken its toll, and I had come to the end of my road, so to speak. And so I end up spending a couple of days in the hospital on IVs. They're trying to, get me back hydrated and give me the necessary medications that I need to try to get myself back on my feet. So that was my first big deal as being a diabetic, which was back in 2009. But after that, I went through a series of emotions. After I went home, I felt like I was too young to deal with this because I didn't know anybody else. I don't talk to people about their medical history, so I didn't know many people who were diabetics at the time, and I felt like, why me? Why am I a diabetic? And I was pretty angry, because the doctor was telling me I can't eat this and I can't eat that, and at that time I was a big fast food eater, and I was eating anything I want to, and I was eating all kinds of desserts, and my favorite desserts, banana pudding and peach cobbler, and I was pretty much eating the way I want to. I was kind of a big guy, had a lot of weight on me. My knees was bothering me. There are times I'm walking down the steps, I had to be careful because my knee from time to time would try to give out. And so I was in a bad way, but my diabetes was poorly managed. I didn't take care of myself. Even after I found out I was a diabetic, I was angry. I was very angry. I was angry at everybody, even though it was nobody's fault but mine. But then I thought about my family. I thought about these questionnaires that the doctor would ask me in my doctor's visit. And I says, so I contact a relative of mine, and I says, do we have diabetes in our family? And come to find out we did. But back in the day, and I've heard the term, but back in the day, it wasn't, at least in our family, it wasn't called diabetes. It was called sugar. And so, I would hear things like, so-and-so died with sugar, or so-and-so got sugar. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have the wherewithal in my mind to research what is sugar, but it was diabetes. It was, your blood sugar was too high. And so I got real upset, and I says, wow. I says, well, no one talked to me about sugar. I mean, if so many people in my family had sugar, it seems to me that you guys will be talking to us younger people so that we can avoid sugar, whatever this sugar was. And so I was real angry. So I kind of got on my relatives pretty strong about it. And I said, and I kind of talked to my mom, and I kind of got on her pretty strong about it too. But my mom's, she's starting to get a little emotional because I was getting on her too hard. So I kind of lit up off of her, and I took it out. I took it out on one of my aunts. But anyway, because she's strong. But I felt like they was not hiding things from me. They just wasn't talking. They should be talking so that we can prevent, these kinds of things. So, I felt like this is not supposed to happen like this. And I was real angry because I couldn't eat at least they said I couldn't eat, but I didn't manage my diabetes well. I didn't eat, and then I did eat things that I wasn't supposed to. I would partially obey the doctor in what I couldn't eat, but then there were times I just went back. And so because of that, my diabetes wasn't managed very well at all. I mean, terrible. When I go back into the doctor's visit, my doctors be upset with me. And they will put me on one medication to another medication. Sometimes, unfortunately for me, I didn't admit to the doctor that I was kind of not following his plan. Actually, I was being abusive to myself. I didn't follow his plan. And so my doctors would be really upset, and they would take me off one medication, put me on another medication. Then they'd add another medication. Then I mean, it was just an ongoing thing. And so this went on for years. And when I say years, I mean years. You know, the doctor would talk about your A1C. Well, I didn't know what A1C was. I mean, I said, so the doctor took my blood and came back and said, your A1C is 14. Well, because I didn't research and I didn't find out, look into what that was, I didn't know. He said, your A1C should be 7. Yours is 14. But unfortunately, my A1C was 14 for years. And when I say years, I mean every time they took a blood sample or blood work or whatever, it was always 14, 14, 14. And I felt like I didn't know what to do as far as trying to get this, whatever this A1C is, down. So, I tried to follow the direction of my medication, and I just never really seemed to have gotten a handle on it. And it's really by God's grace that I'm still here. It's a wonder that I didn't get a stroke or I didn't get a heart attack. And another thing, because I wasn't drinking, and I don't like water. Only time I did drink water, it had to have some type of flavoring in it. But even then, I didn't drink much water. So my kidneys numbers wasn't even up to par. At least not where it should. I guess it was off and on up to par, because it wasn't, in the beginning, it wasn't to the point where my doctors gave me a big alarm about my kidneys and but even my kidney numbers wasn't up to par. But for 14 long years, my A1C was, not completely 16, but almost 16 years, my A1C was 14. Can you believe that? 14. So after 16 years, up until 2024, I finally gained some sense of control of my diabetes, actually with the help of a friend who cooks. And she cooked food. She did her research and found out what diabetics eat and what diabetics don't eat. And so she would cook foods that I'm supposed to eat, and she would cook enough to last for a week. And she would come over to the house every other week and cook meals. And it was then that I really started to gain control over my diabetes. Also, beginning this year, 2025, in January, I really got serious in recording my blood sugar numbers and keeping it in a tablet. So I would write the day, the date, the day, and I would take my blood sugar numbers 3 times a day, 1 in the morning, 1 at noon, and 1 close to midnight. Now, my doctors, and I've had a few doctors since I've began my diabetic scary journey, and many of them would tell me, keep track of your numbers, so when you make an appointment, bring it in so I can follow your numbers and what and then I can gauge what you need or whatever. What I never would do that. Only 2 weeks leading up to my appointment, I would gauge my numbers and write them down. So every time I went to the doctor, when she did request that, I had about 2 weeks of my numbers. Well, this year, starting January, I really got serious. I started writing down my numbers, and I started noticing when my numbers are in the mid 100s, which is where I was trying to keep them within 120, 160 in that general range. I knew what I ate, and if it spiked up to 200, I knew what I ate. So then I began to learn, okay, this spikes my numbers up, and if I don't eat this, my numbers come back down. So I kind of had a scare tactic back in January. My numbers, the highest my numbers got up in January was 507. Then that really scared me. So that's what really motivated me to keep track of my numbers, keep track of what I'm eating, what it is that I'm eating, and keeps track of my schedule too. Because I work a little job, and 3 days of that job I'm working on the afternoons, and two nights of that job in a week I work nights. So my diet when I eat changes. So now, say for instance, if I work nights, my first time I take my numbers, it's a little high, but it's because I had a little lunch on the job. But normally the morning number, that first, is always the lowest. And because of my diabetic was so mismanaged until late last year, my doctor put me on insulin, which is something I've been avoiding for so long, but I had to go on insulin. But it has helped because in the mornings, in the afternoons, my numbers are manageable. It's manageable. So that has helped a lot. So late last year, my doctor referred me to it's called I always have a hard time pronouncing this, endocrinologist. I went to him, and he took my blood work, whatever, and for the first time, and this was somewhat of a relief, even though it was still elevated. For the first time, he came back and says, your A1C is 9.4. I said, well, say that again. He said, your A1C is 9.4. He said, I see on my chart that it's been 14 for the longest of time. He said, what did you do? Well, I couldn't really answer that. I didn't know what I did to bring my A1C down. I'm trying to think, did I eat anything different lately? I really didn't know, but I was so encouraged to hear those 9.4. To me, it sounded like a victory, although I needed to still get it down to 7. So 9.4, that really helped motivate me to maintain management of my diabetic situation. And so the month of January was, I called, that's the month I broke free. I learned to manage my diabetes, and everything seemed to line up for me. And I was really excited about that. One thing, I love my family. I love my daughters. And, my daughters have grown up. They're successful in their own right. They're doing great things. My granddaughters are now growing up, and they're very successful. They're in school, National Honor Society, highest achievement, great grades, and they're in everything. One granddaughter plays a band. Another one plays basketball. Sometimes they play volleyball. One granddaughter that plays basketball sometimes goes out for cross country. So I get invited to go to all of these events, and as a granddad, Poppy as they call me, man, I'm so proud. I just sit there and I am so proud, and I'm so thankful to be alive and to be in reasonably good health to witness all of this. It's amazing to me. So that's my journey as a diabetic. The one thing I did not want to do, and I've seen this happen with a lot of guys my age, a lot of, some guys that I've gone to school with or associated with through life, or people or guys I've gone to church with or whatever. I did not want to die because of something I failed to do. And that's really tragic. It's things, sometimes guys die on things that they could have prevented. And I didn't want to be in that situation. Even guys with great jobs that have great insurance, they just didn't take care of themselves. I don't know, guys, we have a tendency to be kind of afraid of what we're going to hear. But the biggest tragedy is being afraid that you heard the doctor gave you a prognosis or something, and it's too late. You waited too late. So that's the biggest biggest fear and the biggest tragedy. So personally, I wanted to live. I wanted to be around. I wanted to be around to see my granddaughters succeed and be around, just to enjoy life. Even though, I'm 67 years old, will be turning 68 this year. There are things that I want to do. There's things I want to see. There are places I want to go and people I want to be around. So the things that I want to say to our men, to the men in general, is if you got great insurance, you got a good job, and it allows you to have great benefits and great insurance, take advantage of the insurance. Be what you call it, vigilant, or be proactive. Go to the doctor and get your checkups. Check your blood sugar out. Check your heart. Check your lungs. Get your colonoscopy done. I think colonoscopy is usually once every 10 years. Get those things checked out. I grew up in a culture of men where, men back in the day was really into the macho thing. We hard, we men, we hard. So I grew up in a culture of men like that. And so a lot of men back then didn't go to doctors. They didn't admit when there's something going on. They feel like, hey, I got this. I can handle this. And in actuality, we humans, we don't have it like that. And so we have to depend on doctors who've been trained to take a look at us and help us prevent some things that we don't want to go through. And so I encourage men to, hey, get your checkup. Make sure everything is good. Don't be so hard. I mean, being hard has its place. I mean, you're on the street and you need the protection, so you want to, put on a certain wall front, as a source of protection. I mean, that has its place. But when it comes to your health, your body, hey, take care of number one. Be around for a while for your kids. Be around for a while for your grandkids. Don't be so hard, or so, as we called it growing up, that word is not used very much now. Don't be so macho, or don't be so much the man that you don't take care of yourself, because you ain't the man for anybody if you're not here anymore. And so it's important. Take care of yourself. When there's a screening on the job, attend the screening, or a screening at a neighborhood community center, or a screening at a neighborhood church. Check it out. I mean, you ain't got to let all your buddies know that you're going to a screening. Just do it for you. This is all about you. This is all about your survival. This is all about you being around a long time. So that's the biggest message that I have for this video. Hey guys, take care of you. Take care of number one. Because you the best you got. And you the only one you got. And if you don't take care of what you got, it's gone. And there's nothing you can do about that. So be good to yourself. Thanks for looking in on my channel today. I'm going to ask that you subscribe and hit the like button. And also, again, I want to recognize those of you who have welcomed me to this community. I'm getting more welcomes, and I appreciate that. Check me out. Follow my journey. I'm still a brand new channel. I'm still learning how to do this thing. I haven't even learned how to edit yet. So that's something I'm learning. I'm still navigating my way around YouTube's dashboard, trying to figure this thing out. But you know what? I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And we going to do this thing together. So anyway, let's build a community. Go ahead and subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button. So every time that I load up, you'll be the first one to know that I'm I'm on again. I got a new video on. So you guys take care. Be good to yourself. And hey, men, take care of you, brother. Peace.